Hello and welcome to another episode of Here's Why with Kevin Ortega-Rojas. After non-stop coverage of the end of the world, we had to take a 2-week hiatus from filming the show. So here's what we missed. George Santos was officially expelled from Congress, and then he joined Cameo, where he now performs his favorite Taylor Swift songs for a fee. Speaking of Taylor Swift, she was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year, a title previously held by people like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. So, congrats, Taylor. Then former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced that he would be retiring from Congress. House Republicans filed an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, and Trump is officially leading in all 7 swing states. So not much has changed. As I previously mentioned, we took a break from filming this show, but I did not take a break from social media, where I am always sharing breaking news. My feed is filled with stories that I think you should know about. And speaking of getting filled, a member of Democratic Senator Ben Cardin's staff was caught bottoming in a Senate hearing room. This, according to a video that was leaked online, allegedly posted to his close friends. Personally, I'm glad to see someone in DC taking a break from the traditional definition of fucking the American people. Well, according to his post, the guy was German, but you get the point. Between this wannabe OnlyFans star and former Congressman George Santos, the LGBTQ representation in DC is becoming overwhelming. Fuck it, everyone just get back in the closet. Some are saying that this staffer should be held accountable like the January 6th rioters, which I think is a little unfair. They broke into the Capitol and shit all over the walls. At least he was decent enough to prepare himself. Okay, but seriously, I have so many questions, like how did they get into the room? What time of day was it? Where was security? Why did he choose to mention Sonia Sotomayor in the same post where he showed us his bare ass? Did they switch it up, or was it doggy style the whole time? And most importantly, who was the German top in the video? Republicans, this is the kind of investigation the American people can get behind. Anyway, while investigators get to the bottom of that story, there's another political sex scandal, this time in Florida.
Now a co-founder of Moms for Liberty is caught up in a sex scandal involving sex with another woman.
Moms for Liberty co-founder Bridget Ziegler is being called to resign from the Sarasota School Board after her husband, Florida GOP chairman Christian Ziegler, was accused of sexual assaults. But the story doesn't stop there. The victim claims to have been in a sexual relationship with both Mr. and Mrs. Ziegler. Personally, I think that all queer people are deserving of respect, privacy, and a right to come out when they feel ready, unless that person is an entitled white woman who used her power and influence to ban more than 170 LGBTQ books and force schools to out their students. Then she's on her own. Next, the White House has delayed their decision to ban the sale of menthol cigarettes because they're afraid that Biden would lose favor with black voters. I'm sorry, lose favor? Okay. Moving on, a woman in Texas had to sue the state to get permission for an emergency abortion because her baby was not viable. Attorney General Ken Paxton then threatened to prosecute any doctor who performed the procedure, because when it comes to stepping on women's rights, he's got an eye on the prize, I think. This week, Rudy Giuliani was ordered to pay nearly $150 million in a defamation case brought on by 2 Georgia election workers. I'm sorry, but they are never seeing that money. Rudy Giuliani, seen here finding a nickel on the ground, is so broke that hair dye expires after he's already applied it, and he was recently seen shaving at an airport restaurant. Finally, a Florida couple is homeless after selling their property to board a 3-year cruise that was canceled just days before it was supposed to take off. Murray Cruises told customers that they didn't actually have a cruise ship, even though the package cost $250,000. Okay, it's simple. Just go back home and tell the new tenants that they don't actually live there. That is this week's monologue, but before we get to our panel discussion, I want to take a moment to say thank you to the thousands of viewers and to the hundreds of subscribers who have shown us that there is a real need for authentic and honest conversations. This is our final show of the year, but we are just getting started.
The best is yet to come.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Here's Why. I am joined by this week's panel. First up, I have Donovan Thompson, producer and host of Stranger Fruit, Anthony Polanco, my best friend and co-host of Pie Latin Men, the podcast, and Dwreck, co-founder of Warriors in the Garden. How are y'all? Thank you for joining me.
Good.
Great.
How's everyone feeling today?
I'm doing well.
Good. It's the Lord's Day.
I'm refreshed.
what?
Hallelujah.
The Lord's Day.
Not the Lord's Day. It is show day is what it is. All right, so we have some topics to get into. As you all know, it has been more than 70 days since the world's eyes have shifted toward the bombardment of Gaza by the state of Israel. Since the beginning of everyone's collective awareness, do you think that the energy of those advocating for Gaza has begun to die down? Do you think that people are still discussing the issue at the same rate that they were before?
That's a great question. I think that a lot of people are still discussing it, but there's a lot of things that are happening right now. It's holiday time. People are buying shit. People are distracted. They have family and things like that going on. But I think the people that this really means a lot to are continuing. And maybe for people who are just like, beating around the bush, maybe just got to it, are like not as consistent as they were. And I think that that's because of the effort of the algorithm. It's the effort of businesses. It's the effort of the pro-Israeli movement to get people to stop talking about it. But I think that there are people who are relentless, and I've gotten to see a lot of that on my timeline.
Yeah. I think it's still relevant in the news cycle, absolutely, and on social media because it's just getting worse and worse. Like now with they trying to flood the tunnels, but they're like, oh, there's an ulterior motive because they're actually trying to mess up the soil for Palestinians not to be able to live there. So I haven't seen a decline, in my opinion.
An engagement.
No.
With the topic.
No.
Yeah, I think there's actually been an increase in engagement from what I've seen. And I think people finally are having more, intense conversations and connecting the dots between Israel and Palestine, as well as what's happening in Congo, the IDF, as well as the NYPD, and other infrastructures that kind of align and mimic the current oppression that's going on in Gaza right now. So I'm really, really excited about it, to see people further engaged, to see people collectively come to a consciousness around class and racial oppression and systemic oppression, specifically around colonization. So I'm really excited about these conversations that are happening. I've seen people start to engage more, do more research, have really in-depth conversations. And I'm like, I've kind of been, I have a more radical politics, so I've been waiting for these conversations to be more mainstream. So I'm really kind of excited about people publicly having these conversations, publicly debating, finally coming to the realization about a lot of the oppression that's happening globally, and specifically to the Palestinian people.
What do you think, Kevin?
I think that the people who have been the loudest, the strongest, the most fervent, advocates are continuing to do the work, at least from what I've seen. But I do think that the average person who may have felt radicalized for a moment, who was, really going hard on the topic, I think a lot of people have moved on because the algorithm sort of beats it out of you. It's also really easy to just stop seeing these things. Funny enough, I've noticed that a lot of like my mutuals online, like Afif, who's been on the show twice already, like I don't see their stories unless I seek it out. But also, like personally, myself, I've pulled back on how much I'm posting about the topic, which, I know that I'm engaging with the conversation in real time, in real life with people around me. But as far as online, I'm trying to use my platform to share tons of stories, all stories. And when I see that the algorithm is pushing against me, that I'm not being allowed to engage, I'm not being allowed to share stories, to me, it's hindering what I'm trying to do. So it's not that I don't care, but it is about trying to find a balance.
I think that has to be a part of it, is having a conversation around the sinister part of this conversation, which is the algorithm, but also the power of the Israeli government, as well as their propaganda arm, as well as the celebrities that they're paying and endorsing to post certain content, celebrities that they're hiring to make certain content. It's really insane. So I think we have to think about, like, a lot of the times we look at our page and our algorithm and what we see being posted, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the conversations that people are having in their kitchens and at their workplaces and, actually outside in community. And from what I've seen outside, New York City is a bubble, but even at other places, people are connecting to the dots. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and to that point, I think like we need a transition. We need to transition from just being in the social space and talking about this to bringing it into real life and figuring out how we can sort of kind of ingratiate this kind of topic and the severity of the topic into like our daily life. And I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of pushback. Like one of our friends, Eliana, who is a journalist, has sort of put out there that since she's been so vocal about it, she's getting a lot of pushback. People are not taking her stories.
Oh, there's
much
jobs
as
I'm not getting.
Like literally not hiring
Yeah.
people. And so there is a pushback against people using their voices. And so that directly is why people aren't saying things in the social space. But the question then becomes, what can we do in real life to make sure that we're being impactful? And I think there has to be another kind of push where it's not just about becoming viral or having a moment on social media, but it's about connecting to people outside of social media. How do we organize together, do kickbacks where we talk about this kind of stuff? The vote is coming up. We have a lot of things to be talking about.
I have a question. I have two questions, but first, what do you guys feel about people who are trying to do the work and trying to use their voices, who have platforms and want to do the right thing and be on the right side of history, who feel like by continuing to be vocal about this, that it's working against the very thing that they're trying to do? Because, for example, like I'm trying to get jobs in media, and I've noticed that it's been a trend over the last month that every company, every executive that I talk to via email, the conversation stops when they ask for my socials.
Oh my God.
They love my demo. They love, you know, my air checks and my reels, and I'll send it to them. And they're like, okay, can we take a look at your social media? And then that's where the conversation stops.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a coincidence.
It's not.
No.
So, but what would you say if someone's like, well, I know what I feel, but do I have to keep posting about it?
I think that's commentary on the corruption and the bureaucracy of a lot of these systems, including mainstream media and big corporations in general. A lot of them are filled with Zionists, like, let's be for real. And there are repercussions specifically for speaking out against Zionism and the plight of the Palestinian people. My organization has lost grants, scholarships, money. I was just dropped by my literary agent. Like, these are real life consequences for speaking out about oppression. And I think if you truly are an advocate and believe in advocacy work and activism and speaking out for those who are more marginalized than you, you have to make a conscious decision to speak out no matter what the consequences are, or to make a cognizant decision to weigh the consequences and decide how to move forward. To me, I would look at that situation as encouragement to become a more independent, media mavenman and do my own thing.
This is why we're
because I personally wouldn't want to report to somebody that would want to kind of, I think, censor me or my content in that specific way. And that's the risk that you give up. A lot of people sell their souls to sign a contract.
What's so interesting is that you work with, like, let's say your literary agent or people who know the work that you do, and then suddenly when the work that you do and the advocacy that you do starts to make them uncomfortable, suddenly they have to cut ties with you. But I have one more question, and then we have to move on for the sake of time. But Taylor Swift was called out by, I hate that I have to talk about this white woman all the time. Taylor Swift was, well, I think this is interesting. Taylor Swift was called out the day before yesterday. So she was called out over the weekend by Megyn Kelly. And Megyn Kelly called her out because Taylor Swift and her friends attended a comedy show where the proceeds of the comedy show, the comedian who is Muslim, the comedian was donating the proceeds of the show to a humanitarian group that is supplying aid to Gaza.
Okay.
And so they connected the fact that Taylor attended a show where the person who's performing is choosing to do something with their money to benefit people in Gaza, and say that Taylor Swift now endorses terrorists.
Yeah.
What is just your immediate reaction to that?
White crime.
White on white crime.
Like, we don't need, all right, so anytime we speak up to authority or power, we always are going to be met with resistance, especially when you're not white in this country, right? So, like, when it was the kneeling for, Kaepernick and him losing his job, and nobody stuck up for him, nobody saved his job. When it was for Black Lives Matter, and people were losing their jobs until the world said, no, this was wrong. And then now it's Palestine. we can't stop doing what we're doing because at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit us. Like it's only going to benefit the white people if we stay shut. So I like when I see our friends and stuff like that are big influencers expose the apps. Like, oh, look how many views I was getting. But now that I mentioned Gaza, now my views drop. So now we're not going to say Gaza. We're going to say this word. And now when they're talking about the Israel and Palestine thing, they're using different words, or they're calling Hamas hummus and stuff like that to get around the algorithm. But at this point, when it's times like this, you're gonna lose jobs. We're always gonna be the ones that are penalized for what's going on if you speak up. If you stay silent, you still are gonna be penalized by the people that you are your audience. Because they're going to be like, you're selling your soul. So either way, you're going to lose.
My concern with the issue with the Taylor Swift story, with Megyn Kelly calling her out, is that I don't think many people paid attention to it. I think she just went to a fucking comedy show. My concern is I don't want young white Taylor Swift fans online to take Taylor Swift attending a comedy show as activism.
As activism, right.
Okay. I feel you on that.
And I think that is what's gonna start happening when you start connecting. Like, see, she did do something, guys. She went to that comedy
but isn't
show.
that the world we live in, where people their political conversations, their political participation, sometimes ends with donating money or going to a comedy show or posting something on Instagram or showing up to a protest or like these little small things to me that are minute and just like a part of like civil engagement. Some people, like, all they do is vote. Sometimes all people do is like these little things. And so I think it can be a form of activism, but I think there should be some critique there is like, is it enough? And I think that should definitely be a part of the conversation and the dialogue. And for me personally, I've made my career out of like making white people uncomfortable, as well as like like exploiting white voyeurism. For some reason, white people love seeing me rant. White people love seeing me at protests. White people love seeing black people being attacked by the police. It's a whole fucking thing. So I think we have to exploit those things. I think we really do have to exploit those things and exploit like making white people uncomfortable. And I like seeing dynamics like this. And I think it's on Taylor Swift to say something and to do something more and to be responsive and to show people exactly where she is politically. I think this is the perfect time for her to clap back and do something and say something.
Clap black.
Clap black.
I mean, don't clap too hard though, Taylor, because
clap black.
But you know, I can't.
She had Ice Spice on the song recently, right?
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't keep up with the whites
Ice
like
Spice.
that. I don't know.
Ice Spice ain't white. Come on.
She's the
I don't
money
know
But
what
man.
Taylor
she
means.
definitely not the representation that we need.
No, I
For
agree
this
with that.
issue.
I
This
agree
is
with that.
taking.
No,
this
but
is
she
taking a
talks to
turn.
white women. Taylor Swift has a specific
absolutely.
platform and
Yeah,
a specific power that Beyonce doesn't have, that I don't have, that nobody on this panel has.
it's true.
And she can influence white women who are
someone-
very impactful.
there was a comedian recently
Yeah,
who
she
was
can
like-
do that in a very strong way. And I think
Someone
she
was
has a
like, people say
responsibility
that
to do
Taylor
that.
She
Swift
has a
is
responsibility
overrated,
too.
but the truth is that like white women, y'all needed a leader. And
They
you
listened
finally
to
have
her.
one. Yeah.
Well, I think her response is the way to change the conversation. Like, she should have took the moment. I don't know if she
She's
responded.
not going to respond.
She should have responded not to Megyn Kelly, but she should have posted the like comedy show that she went to and like promoted like the next one and been like, go here if you support the end of genocide. Something like that.
That
But if she's
would've
not
been
gonna
nice.
do that, then it's like, then
Exactly.
did you just go and you didn't even know where you were going?
She
I'm
should've-
sure she was
should have
just-
posted
She
the
probably
link.
didn't even know.
Do
She
you think
probably
she did
didn't
the
know.
GoFundMe or something?
Right. She
You don't
probably
think
didn't
she
even know
knew?
where she was going.
She didn't. She went to a comedy show with
Right.
Cara Delevingne and her other celebrity friends.
But
Anyway.
if she had a smart PR team, they would have spun that around.
Spin.
They would have spun it around.
The smart PR team is going to stay far away from this topic, is what they're going to do. This is a headline I'm sure you've heard about. Kate Cox, a Texas mother, was recently denied access to an emergency abortion after multiple doctors told her that her 20-week-old fetus was not viable. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, and the Texas Supreme Court said that she did not qualify for an abortion exception. Do you think that these kinds of stories will change the minds of pro-lifers in America when you put a face to it?
No.
No.
I really don't think so. I think that pro-lifers, which I have to, use air quotes because I think that term is ridiculous and shouldn't even apply to people who are saying that they want
against abortion.
Like who are against abortion. It just makes no sense to me. But I would say that these people, it's tribalism, right? Their idea about abortion or affirmative action or the variety of things is just tribalism, and they're stuck on stupid. And I think that that's completely fine. I think like there is more to be said about Democrats in particular and the party that actually is pro-choice to come in and sort of put this up for everyone to see, especially with like this re-election that's coming up, to let people really understand that the people who are quote unquote pro-life are always going to have this disposition. They were waiting on a long, long time to be able to overturn Roe versus Wade.
I disagree. I have a whole different view on the whole topic because I do think that, and this is another example of white on white crime, and we need that in America because they only look when it happens to their own. So for it to be a white woman in Texas, and she's been told, and her doctor testified that her fetus is not viable and that her life is in danger if she carries out the pregnancy, that goes against the pro-life stance because the pro-life stance is not the extreme, which is no exceptions. The pro-life stance is for the baby to live. If the baby's not gonna be alive, there's no chance of it living, then why are you stopping her from getting an abortion?
Because it's really about control.
Yeah, it's about control, and that exposing this. But I think that it does matter at this time because we've seen, even with Roe v. Wade changing, it didn't have the effect that everybody thought it was gonna have. Even in Florida, Ron DeSantis went from signing a 6-week ban to now moving to 16 weeks because he's running for president and it wasn't popular. So I think it is important for it to be having for the conversation to be had right now, and I think that it is changing the light on pro-life because it's like, are you only for the life of the baby and not the mother, because the mother's gonna die if she doesn't have an abortion? And if you're pro-life for the baby is not viable. A doctor is telling you the baby is dead already.
Yeah. So if this was a black mother married with 2 other children in Texas, do you think that it would get national attention?
There's a lot of conversations happening here, and there's a lot of things that intersect. I'm a bit of a nihilist, and a lot of my friends are. So like, we believe that, like, specifically a form of protest is to not have children, especially in a world that is exploitative, capitalist, and you're going to raise a black kid in an anti-black society. It's a whole conversation. I think people should look into it. I also think that, like, yeah, if it was a black woman, it would create a different dynamic. But I also think, like, an even bigger conversation, like, I definitely want to focus on the black woman aspect, which is like black women not being believed, black women's health access, poor people's health access in general, like women from Texas having to like move or go to different states to get these procedures, Texas then reprimanding them or like arresting them from going to different states. That's a whole thing. Yep. But I also think, like, if we're going to have a conversation about this, we have to talk about how the Democratic Party specifically has used this as a wedge issue, has specifically used this as well as like Trump as a like dangling carrot to get people to vote and engage, instead of giving us stuff like when they had the supermajority and locking down Roe versus Wade, instead of giving us, you know, more access to healthcare, instead of like giving us more programs for children and benefits. It's like we have to really think about.
It's reactive.
This is very reactive, and to me, it seems like a way to get more people politically engaged in the moment.
If we give you everything, how can we count on you showing up?
Exactly, crumbs. And people settle for crumbs when they don't know better, and people settle for crumbs when they have to participate in a binary system that's giving them limited
Shitty
choices.
options.
Yeah, so I think that has to be a real part of the conversation. Is like, if the Democrats were really with the shits, they could have took care of this 10 years ago. And they didn't. I think they didn't for a very specific reason. And I think the chickens have finally come home to roost. And people, specifically black people and black women, are like, is abortion the hill I'm going to die on? And a lot of black girls ain't.
No.
A lot of black girls ain't.
But it's not only on Democrats, though, because this woman, again, we have to look. This is why I think she's.
But Democrats are the only ones that says they're with the shits.
That can do it.
They say they're with the shits. But when it comes down to it,
they don't do shit.
They don't do shit. And they use it to get us outside.
Well, they do shit for their own. Right? In the blue states, which is the same thing Republicans do for their own in the red states. That's just the two-party broken system
but
that
we could have taken care of this on the federal level.
We could have taken over it, right? But what I'm saying is, look at this example. She is a woman who probably is a Republican, right? Who probably is pro-life, but wants exceptions. But that's not the choice you have, ma'am. You either are for abortion or you're not. And
Exactly.
now
Vote properly.
But
Vote
now, that's what I'm
properly.
saying. So now you were voting against your interests all this time, right? Maybe you're voting like your husband is telling you, but you're voting against your own interests. And now you're in a position because you put yourself there.
But maybe if Taylor Swift spoke out on it.
And there it is. We could go to the next topic.
We are gonna move on from one white woman to another.
Right.
The advocacy group, Moms for Liberty, which is well known for fighting against masks in school, fighting against LGBTQ themed books in schools. They've had more than 170 books banned across America. One of the founders, her name is Bridget Ziegler. She's being called out because her and her husband engaged in a sexual relationship with another woman who is now accusing her husband of sexual assault. Her husband is the chair of the GOP in Florida. Bridget is being called out because she was fighting against LGBTQ themed books, fighting against LGBTQ people. She helped bring forward the Don't Say Gay bill, which forces schools to out trans and queer kids to their parents. And so this whole time, she was fighting against queer people and engaging in same-sex relationships, and people are calling her out for that.
Because she's trying to control everybody else's
This is
decisions
personal
and personal lives.
Yeah,
So, no,
absolutely.
I think that this is not going to change anything in Florida, but I think is a great thing to see publicized that you were outed and you're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
So I think it ain't going to change anything in Florida, though.
So Moms for Liberty, the other two co-founders have distanced themselves
Yes.
from her. They have not said anything. They say she no longer holds an official title, and they just refuse to comment on the whole situation. But do you think that situations like this will start to diminish that kind of organization's
Credibility.
Credibility.
influence?
No.
Because they're influential. They have helped
Yeah.
alt-right candidates get elected.
Yeah,
so
that's
do you think that now that she has lost her credibility and therefore the group that she founded is losing its credibility, will they fade
I
into
think
obscurity?
possibly, but I think it will spawn itself into a new form, just like white supremacy does, time and time again, over and over, and they'll find a new way to be even more effective because this group is highly effective. Like the way they have infiltrated
They have
school
more than
boards,
400 chapters across the
insane,
country. Yeah.
fucking insane. Their fundraising capabilities off of the charts. Like they're up there with APAC, if you ask me. Like
Nothing gets
they're pretty good.
They're not
Nothing
going
gets people
anywhere.
upset.
But they
like,
currently have a ton of lawsuits against them. Currently, one of my friends, George Johnson, he wrote the book. I think it's called All Boys Aren't Blue. He currently has a lawsuit against them.
Shout
So
out to him.
I think there's like 14 different authors, a couple different publishing houses that are going against
suing.
them.
Yeah.
That are suing them. So hopefully there's something that comes out of that.
Right.
But I think this may be the beginning of the fall for them, but I don't think it'll stop the ideology as well as the work that they've done. They've done some on the ground work.
They'll change
in
the
a lot of
name.
these places.
Yeah, I don't think that people will really give a fuck. Just like with Trump, who we've seen has lied. Now he's like under indictment. He's in court every day. He's been found guilty of certain things.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that people care. I think one of the biggest things to understand about the white supremacist power structure is that it will always wind up being hypocritical. It will always lie on itself.
100%.
And it will always use the mechanisms that it has, media, music, celebrity, all the money, all of the things to make you see things a little bit differently. I will say wherever you find hyper homophobia, there are queer people who are in the closet who are having a really, really rough time.
The insult to injury is you're telling me gay is wrong, but you're eating kitty cat with your husband. But then also Trump was the biggest, like once Trump got elected and by the evangelical party and he cheated on his wife and prostitutes.
All the
and
things.
they look past that. As
They
long
double
as you
down. They double
Grab
down
them
on
by
that.
as
the-
long
Meow.
as you give them money, they'll look past it and they
Absolutely.
forgive your sins. And
Absolutely.
I'm not surprised by
Period.
this.
Are you surprised that throughout this scandal, because this is a sex scandal, that the most attention is going to his wife for being a hypocrite and having sex with a woman and not the man who's being accused of sexual assault?
Am I surprised that homophobes are also misogynists? No,
No,
I'm not.
but-
The fact that it's not being called out is
Oh, it's not
based
being
in
called out,
patriarchy
yeah.
and misogyny, and I'm not
Yes,
surprised.
they do not
No.
care.
Moving on, we have one last sex scandal to go through before we wrap up this
Another one.
episode.
Oh
A
my
DC
God.
staffer was fired from his position after a video he filmed of himself in a different kind of position.
Oh, boy.
He was
gonna have
having
to
sex
bleep
with
me
another
out.
man in a Senate hearing room. He posted photos and videos to his close friends, which were quickly picked up by far-right conservative blogs and news sites. Now the story is everywhere. What was your initial reaction? And how do you think that these kind of stories will impact Democrats and LGBTQ folks?
I thought this was a lost opportunity to create a really niche OnlyFans.
Maybe that's what he was trying to do.
Wear a mask, right?
Come on
Put
now.
a mask on. So, like
Messy.
what? Like the
Messy.
the politically motivated, or this is a political stance and for Palestine is crazy. Like you didn't have a watermelon or a flag on your back while you was getting fucked. Like
so
you
context,
didn't. It is crazy.
Context.
Go ahead.
The Republican senators who were heavily pushing this story out on Twitter,
Yes.
X, whatever you want to call it, they had words with him, with the staffer in question, when he approached them for being Zionists. And so he is saying that they are using this opportunity to attack him back.
Girl, you're not a victim here.
You didn't make it hard for them to. Oh, no.
but he's
pun
not
intended.
a victim.
He made
But
it
you
hard
didn't-
for someone.
Right. You didn't make it hard for them
No couth.
to be able to come for you.
No
Listen,
couth.
here's my commentary on this. We are such a shitty society now that we cannot even not film ourselves having sex in any place. And I'm just saying this to say because I have my own sort of theory about what's going on with us as a society and our level of narcissism, where we have to film everything and then we have to do things. We have to have sex in grocery stores and in parks and all of these different kinds of places.
I live for it.
And a lot of it is for
I live for
entertainment.
it.
But listen, everybody's not
You
a
ain't
porn
doing it.
star. Here's the thing. I'm one of those people where it's just like, I like art. Porn is fantastic, but everybody's not a porn star. But because you have access to a phone and a camera, you think that you're going to be the next viral sensation. My thing is like,
And he was.
the reason, and he was, and
For the
not,
wrong
maybe not
reasons,
in the
though.
way that he wanted to be. But I think we have to think about this in context, that we're now in a space in society where if you're a lawyer, you're trying to get a viral video. If you're a doctor, you're trying to get a viral video. If you're a therapist, you're trying to get a viral video. If you're an activist, you're trying to get a viral video. And it compromises everyone's integrity. Where everybody, I mean, the
Did
other
we
day,
forget that Bill Clinton got head in the fucking Oval Office?
Exactly.
This has
But
been
Bill
going on.
Clinton
But
couldn't get fired.
No, because he didn't record it. But I'm just saying, like the morality argument for me doesn't
That's the
work.
part.
Like. Yeah,
It's not a morality
no.
argument.
I'm just.
I was
I
gonna
didn't
say,
say
where
it
is
was
the
a morality
morality?
argument.
Okay.
I'm just saying in general, a morality
Yeah.
argument about people's behavior doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But like, because I feel like this type of stuff has been going on for so long, and I really don't think that's the issue. I don't
Yeah.
think he's the first person
Exactly,
to do that.
that's
I
the
don't
thing,
think
like,
he's the
he's
first
trying to
person
make
to
it-
But he's a
record it.
dumbass.
I think
He's
he
a
was a
dumbass who
dumbass
got
for
caught.
sitting
So
in a group chat. Absolutely.
What I'm confused about is, okay, you want to have like sneaky sex. Why were you completely undressed in the Senate chamber? And why do you have access to that room? Where were the Capitol Police? Because this was this was a lengthy video. He took photos.
I haven't
How
seen
long
the
was
video.
it? I didn't-
Crazy.
It ain't nothing to watch
So
anyway.
there's a video,
be honest.
there's a full length video, and then he also like
The picture looked better than the
desk,
video.
The desk that he's on, he has like a photo of himself that he posted.
A lot of people like to have sex and a lot of people are freaky. We know that, period. It's the audacity. It's the audacity for me,
Bruh.
for people to constantly do things that they're going to have to wind up explaining.
Listen, I feel bad for him. I'm glad it happened. You deserve to be shamed. Bring back shame. That's what I gotta say. Because it's stupid. Who thought that the
Bring back
Democratic
shame.
Party needed this? Like, Republicans are crazy as hell, but they would never do this. You would never see this from a Republican. It's never gonna happen.
All right, well.
Hashtag bring back shame. That was
It
fucking
is.
hilarious.
Bring back shame.
That is the final topic. Thank you
Do
guys.
do you buy into him being a victim? Like he's acting like he's the victim of something.
No, absolutely not. I think that this was ridiculous.
Yes.
I think,
Absurd.
As soon as the video went up, I honestly did not hesitate. I posted it because I knew it was gonna go viral.
Right.
And I shared it on Instagram, and people were like, "Well, this is just from a blog, and it's not being confirmed." And I'm like, they're like, maybe it's a deep fake. I'm like, who's making a deep fake of a random making of a
Right,
senator?
right.
Who's
I
making
said,
it
I
of a
was a green
staffer?
screen.
Exactly.
This man gets
It's a green screen. It
Right,
was
this man
wild.
gets
It
paid
was
$20 an hour. Like
Yeah.
no one is going
I
out of their
know.
way to set you up.
Right.
Maybe
And
pay your staffers more too. Does he
Nobody-
have an OnHFans? Did we confirm that?
no.
That's what people
That's
say.
what I said.
In his defense, they said you would be surprised how many staffers have to supplement their income.
I mean,
with
yo,
OnlyFans.
mad
No,
people have
literally.
OnlyFans.
But
Literally.
you're losing
Mad
your
Literally.
your career. You put your career in the line for
people,
OnlyFans.
people are desperate. secret out here.
No.
Come on.
All right. Anyway, back to what I was saying, which was wrapping up this episode. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for joining me on the last episode of the year.
Of course.
You're welcome.
And thank you all at home for checking
great.
out this episode of Here's Why. I will be back in late January after the Iowa caucus. I will see you then. Till then, take care. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.